This past year, really actually the last couple of years, the industry's been so volatile. There's been a lot of noise and a lot of change. But a lot of people are acting like everything is just fine while the ground is literally moving under our feet. And that's why today's conversation is a big one. And it's one that I've been trying to have for several months. But here in 2026, there's absolutely no better time to look back and to tell the truth about what's happening and get clear on what we need to do to stay sharp, stay relevant, and stay winning moving into the future. So now I got a quick confession. I usually come in here with the best radio voice, right? Just real smooth, polished. That's my thing. But today I'm feeling a little bit awkward. I'm feeling a little some kind of way because I've got a guest who honestly, guys, might be the only person in the channel with a radio voice that not only can go toe to toe with mine, but it might end up like a Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua fight around here. Today, I've got Craig Galbraith. You all know this guy. He is known as the voice of the channel. For over 17 years, he's had his finger on the pulse of our industry. I'm talking thousands of interviews. He's hosted, moderated, recorded, and told more of our stories than absolutely anyone else alive. And today, well, he knows what to expect when he shows up on this show. He's not here just to smile for the camera and give us a press release. We're talking about what's changing in the channel, what M&A is really doing to the ecosystem, why partners say community, but still move like they don't trust each other, and what suppliers keep getting wrong when they enter this space. Now remember, as always, this is not about ranting. We don't rant on this platform. This is about growth mindset. So not only are we talking about these real issues, but we're talking about real solutions. So buckle up. It's time to go. Let's get the party started.
Here to show up and show out. Here to show up and show out. What? Here to show up and show out. Here to show up and show out. Yeah. Here to show up.
Welcome to Shut the Hell Up and Sell Unfiltered, the podcast that's not afraid to tackle the uncomfortable truths and bad habits that keep you from reaching your potential. I'm your host, Ronnell Richards, award-winning sales expert, author, and top influencer in technology channel sales. Each week, I sit down with industry influencers and top performers for bold, honest conversations that are designed to cut through the noise and deliver real, actionable advice that you can apply immediately to grow your career and boost your sales success. No fluff, no excuses, just real talk, real influencers, and real results. Let's get into it.
Here to show up and show out. Here to show up and show out. Yeah.
Hey family, welcome back to Shut the Hell Up and Sell Unfiltered. I am Ronnell Richards. I am your host. I am the MC of this crazy journey that we've been on. And I got to tell you guys, this has been one heck of a year. The last couple of years have been a little bit of volatile in our community and in our industry. And that's why this conversation that we're going to have today, I've been trying to have this conversation for months, but for reasons that we'll talk about here in a moment, it had to be pushed off. But there's no better time than right now as we're headed into the new year to start having these conversations so that we understand how we can better position ourselves for success and kind of take a snapshot of what's happened in our industry and in the past, and kind of look forward to the future in terms of figuring out what we need to do to continue to excel and continue to thrive. And there is no one better to have this conversation with. Although, let me back up really quick, because I'm feeling a little bit of some kind of way because I'm used to having the best radio voice whenever I get on one of these things. So we're going to have a little bit of the battle of the radio voices. But again, there's no one better to have this conversation about where our industry is, where the industry is going, and to provide some insight and advice and maybe help agitate you guys' thoughts a little bit in terms of what you should be focused on than my friend, Craig Galbraith, who I affectionately call, not just me, many of you, the voice of the channel. What's going on, Craig?
Ronnell, thanks for having me. This is, you're right. You've been trying to get me for a while. I think I was putting you off for a bit. So it's good to be here. I was laughing with my buddy, Kevin Morris, who I used to do the Channel Features podcast with before James Anderson and I were doing. I told him I was going to be on your show. And I said, if Ronnell asks me any tough questions I don't really want to answer, I'll just kind of always direct it back towards me and my business and so forth, because that's what everybody always used to do on our podcast. So I got that down. I'm not used to answering the questions, though. I will tell you that. So
I know
I've
you're
only
not,
done
and
that
so
a
this is
couple
going to
of
be a
times.
little bit of a departure from what you're used to. We're going to make it comfortable, but now you just let me know your game. So now that shit ain't going to happen today, Craig. The minute you start transitioning over to your business, I'm like, nope, back it up. No, but hey, in all seriousness, thank you so much for doing this. Again, I've been really excited to have this conversation with you because there's some things that we haven't talked about, and some not just industry issues, but wider world things that I want to talk about with you as it relates to information, as it relates to journalism, all these things that I feel like there is we're challenged with right now. But before we get there, everybody knows you as the guy at the conferences, always busy, always hosting, always interviewing, and but I feel like we know you, but maybe don't know you, Craig. And so I want people to get to know you a little bit better. And one of the ways that I like to get into that and understanding who people are, now I know this, but a lot of people may not know this about you, is I like to start with sports because that's just who I am. So I got to know where sports alignments are. And you and I have had some conversations. So, hey, let's talk about college sports real quick. Who do you support and why?
Yeah, we could fill your whole time talking about this, as you know. So yeah, so I'm a University of Washington alum. You and I have had many conversations as we've entered the Big Ten, or the Big 18. Isn't that right? What I like to call it.
I don't know. It's just big and getting
It is
bigger
big.
every day.
It is. So I went to University of Washington, been a loyal fan for my entire life, pretty much. Even when I moved to Arizona, people are like, oh, don't you like root for the Arizona teams? They're like, you don't really do that. I don't have anything against them, but yeah, I mean that's where my loyalty lies. We were in the championship. We don't have the track record that Ohio State necessarily has, but we were in the championship for football here a couple of years ago, and then the whole team got gutted, and now we're slowly coming back to where next year I think we'll make a run at being back in the playoffs. So that's where my loyalty is.
Are you guys hearing that, Indiana? You hearing that, Indiana? That's your future. I'm just saying these two things are not the same.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I to be fair, Craig, I told everyone last year after Ohio State won the national championship that I was going to be very obnoxious for the next year as it relates to being, a Buckeye fan. So there you go. I'm throwing some Indiana shots and some Washington shots. So Huskies, Hoosiers, two birds with one stone. All right. Huskies, who's your GOAT Husky player? Who's the all-time great?
In football?
Your choice.
Okay. Well,
Sports, athletics.
I'm going to date myself here on football. We're going to go back to Steve Entman, who was a big defensive lineman who was number one pick in the NFL draft back in 1992.
Patriots?
He played for the Colts.
Okay.
And then he had a leg injury. And he never really came back to where he could play very effectively, primarily with the Colts. Look it up, Ronnell. He's got a interception. He reached up. I can't remember who they're playing, but he reaches up inside the 10-yard line and just puts his big paw up there.
Yeah.
And intercepts a pass at the line and runs it back 90 yards for a score. The guy was a monster.
That wasn't a Huskies game?
Highlights. No, this was when he was in the NFL with the
Colts.
Okay. But he just wreaked havoc. He was in the backfield on every play for us. And that was the year we won the national championship. The last time. So I'm living my glory years from when I was a freshman in college. But yeah, so more recent, it'd probably be Michael Penix, right?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Craig, Michael Penix. I don't know. Atlanta Falcon fan here, and I don't know. We don't know.
Give him
Lots of
some time.
talent.
Give him some time.
I don't know that he has time, Craig. He's already gone 2 repaired knees, and he just tore his knee again. So that's what we're concerned about, and his leadership. That's a whole nother thing. Now, here's what I'm surprised by, Craig. Here's what I'm surprised. I thought you were going to throw Warren Moon in there, buddy.
Oh, well, that'd be, yeah, I could have done that. I could have thrown Warren Moon in there. He's still doing some of the Seahawks broadcasts as the radio guy. So, at least last time I checked. So, he's right up there. Yeah, but he was, he's a few years before my time, at least, of being in college. So,
but he's a Hall of Famer. Hall of Famer. I believe the all-time yardage leader in professional football. So combining time in the CFL right. and the NFL. Yeah. All right, we got to adjust that. More.
He's on my Mount Rushmore of Washington, football players. You asked me the question. Come on now.
That's true. All right.
Check out Entman. You'll find that any good Husky fan will tell you Entman's the greatest of all time.
Well, I'm going to take your word for that because you're a Husky. That's like asking me, like a Buckeye, my all-time favorite quarterback, my GOAT quarterback at Ohio State is JT Barrett. And I think most Buckeye fans would tell you that. Is he the most successful? No, as a Buckeye, pretty doggone successful, but definitely not in the NFL and all that. That didn't really happen for him. Not one of the biggest names, but yeah, it's JT Barrett all day for me. So I understand that. Now, let's bring back the rest of the audience because they're like, okay, sports, I'm out. What do you have hobbies? What do you do other than just great journalism? What's your hobby, Craig?
Well, it's funny that before I get into that, you said that earlier about people knowing me, but not really knowing me. And it's true. I've kind of been that way my whole life because before I was in, with Channel Futures and the whole channel publication and videos and all that. Some people might not know I did local TV news for 11 years before that. So those have been pretty much my two careers over time. And you're really in a position where people think they know you when you're on television every night. And then you get out in the community and they know you, but you don't know them. So that's definitely the case.
What got you into what started that journey for you? Like, did you just growing up, you're like, when you were like, I don't know, 12, did you have the voice of a 40-year-old and you're like, I'm going to get into television journalism. Like, what happened?
You'd be very surprised, but you've almost hit it on the head, to be honest with you. That is practically the story. But for me, I wanted to go into what else? I wanted to go into sports broadcasting, right?
Yeah.
I was the kid on the bus that, in junior high was doing all the Howard Cosell impressions and doing all the play-by-play of our games that we were coming back from. So that's what I initially wanted to do from the time I was about 12. So when I went to University of Washington, I got enrolled in communications program and so forth. And I thought I wanted to pursue that. But to be honest with you, when it came down to it and I was looking for work, and once I got my broadcasting degree, it was a matter of, if you try to go into local news, there's like 5 jobs of doing news for every one that was a sports reporter. Even big markets like you're in, there are only 2 or 3 sports guys or gals, right?
Yeah.
Who work. Whereas there might be 10 or 15 different news reporters. The other thing I found, so I just broke into news that way, and I worked in a small market in North Dakota for about a year and a half, doing that before I moved on to another station back home in Yakima, Washington. But what I found was, again, more news jobs. And once I did sports, you always do a little bit of everything in these small markets. Once I did sports, I realized I didn't really want to do it. Wow. Because it's much harder to be a fan if you're in a press box or on the field. Mm-hmm. I mean, your view really isn't that good. I mean, people think, oh, it's exciting, you're down in the field. But it's not. And you can't, if you're in the press box, you can't cheer for your team. because you're supposed to be impartial and you can't be loud because the broadcast is going on. So yeah, that's what I found. I'd much rather just be a sports fan than actually doing sports on TV.
So tell me how that transitioned to our business and our industry. So how did that opportunity come about?
It came about pretty much like anybody who gets into the channel. They have no idea how it really came about. I had worked in TV again for like 11 years. Most people who go on to big markets have to hop through 2 or 3 hoops, going from where I was in Yakima, Washington to like Boise, Idaho, and then to Wichita, Kansas, slowly getting to a larger city where you can work. I'd done it for a while. I was past 30 at this point. I didn't really want to do that. Go to 2 or 3 places. I was married. Just wasn't something I wanted to do. So we wound up moving to Phoenix. My wife's parents lived here, and just figured there would be a fair amount of opportunities in a bigger city to find work. And long story short is, again, I had no idea what channel was. I saw a job open on wherever I was looking for jobs, and Phone Plus wound up plucking me out of thin air. And Callie Henderson, who I know that you know and a lot of our audience does, she hired me, and sort of the rest is history. And I was with the company through the acquisition by Informa, and was there until September of this year.
17 years, right?
Yeah, 17. Wow. It was a good run.
Great run. So, hey, before we get into that a little bit more, I still feel like you're a bit of an enigma. What do you do for fun? What's Craig's hobbies?
You held me to it. You asked the hobbies question. I didn't fully answer that.
Oh,
question. Yeah. So we talked about the sports stuff. I'm kind of a nerd. I'm a word nerd who likes to do crossword puzzles. It just kind of goes with the territory, I think, of what I do. Read. I've got, like I said, I'm married to my beautiful and intelligent wife, Melissa. I feel like I'm in a game show. I got to say that. And we've got 2 Labradoodles who keep us real busy too. So those are my primary habits. I like playing sports as well. I get a lot of exercise. I hit the gym.
What are your favorite sports to play?
Yeah, I played in a basketball league, like a rec league, for a number of years after we moved here. I haven't done that for a few years. I like to get out. I don't have a lot of time all the time to get out and play golf. I'm not much of a golfer. I'm more of a hacker than anything else, but I do go to the driving range from time to time. It's kind of a good way to get out frustration. I feel like when you actually play golf, there are too many frustrations, but it just created by the game.
Oh, there are.
If you go to the driving range, you're just whacking the crap out of the ball, right? And that's, sometimes you'll miss it, but it doesn't matter because you've got it up on the tee. There's no real huge challenge of hitting it out of the rough or anything like that. I just, swing it hard and knock it around. So those are the sports I like to play. I'd play football too, but I'm starting to get a little old now, Ronnell. I'm worried about, I stopped running. I used to run. Now I just kind of do the brisk speed walking thing because I don't want my knees to go. So, I do my best without risking too much.
Back to you played football.
Well, no, I mean, I played football just kind of with the guys. We go out and play football in college. I didn't play it.
A little recreationally? Yeah.
No, yeah, recreationally. I played Little League. When I was young and I did play basketball in high school, and I kind of peaked when I was a sophomore in high school, I think, because that's when I started to grow.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I could shoot the 3 pretty well. Could shoot from distance, but then they wanted to move me in. Once I got over 6 feet, they wanted to move me inside. And, I was a fairly slight kid, wasn't real strong at that point. So that wasn't the best place for me. Then I got to be about 6'3" or 6'4". I wasn't tall enough to be, the real tall guys, but I was too tall to be out playing guard anymore. So at least where I was.
Those were the days, not necessarily in a positive way, but that's the way it was back in the day, right? So you're 6'3", you're 6'4", get down in the post. you're not shooting any threes. Nowadays, your point guards are 6'3", 6'4", Craig. Like, and they want everyone shooting. Positionless basketball is what it's about now. So I guess you're a man ahead of your time. Well, I feel like I have a little bit of a better understanding of who you are now, and I think that our audience does too, and kind of through what you dig and what you do and kind of your off time. And those are a couple of things that, wow, again, you're a tall guy, you're a fit guy. I don't know if people would have actually thought, oh, Craig's actively going out there and playing sports and doing this thing. So I appreciate that. And it tells me a little bit more about you as a competitor, because those of us that play sports and continue to play sports as we get older, it tells them there's a real strong note of competition in there, because that's the reason why a lot of us do it, not just for exercise, but it's to scratch that itch. So now we're going to get into business, Craig, because this is what it's about to get spicy, my friend. So, hey, guys, if you don't want any spicy talk, now's the time to go ahead and go, I don't know, do something else, listen to something else. But right now, we're going to get into some topics that I've been just really excited to talk about. And not from, and again, for those of you guys that have not watched the show before, understand that everything that we do is all from a growth mindset standpoint. We don't rant, we don't rave. We talk about challenges, we talk about concerns, and then we talk about how we address those things, right? So we can continue to evolve our industry. It's all about growth mindset. So typically, Craig, at this stage, this is when I pop in and say, okay, Craig, what's your hot button topic item? But I wanted to go a different direction with you, because I got hot button topics that quite frankly, I think that I care a lot about and our community cares a lot about, and you're uniquely qualified to talk about some of these things. So again, for context, 17 years with your finger on the pulse of our industry. And I'd love to just do, as we kind of set the tone for this, do a brief little recap, right? And just starting with like, hey, when you stepped into this business 17 years ago, what did it look like? What did it feel like back then?
Yeah, so many ways I could go with that, right? Two things I think is just the general progression of the industry. I mean, I think we weren't even talking 17 years ago about the cloud.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how long ago it was. And it's been really interesting for me to see how the channel has progressed, particularly partner community, the TA community, or the agent community, as we used to know them, how they've adopted some of these technologies and incorporated them into their businesses. I think it's been interesting to watch the TSDs a lot over that time too. I mean, some of them were only, the main TSDs were probably only a few years old at that point, 2008, I'm thinking. Now you've got a number of them. We're down to what I guess we'd say 3 major TSDs through all the consolidation. I think that's been really interesting to watch.
Mm-hmm.
You've got other companies, you think about like Bridgepoint and Blue Wave, that have sort of established a spot in that space as sort of a hybrid TSD slash tech advisor company. So from that side of the channel, that's been interesting. I think it's also been interesting to watch the evolution of the managed service provider and the VAR, because those again were 17 years ago pretty much completely separate businesses. We weren't talking about those two as being merged now. And you can really look at all sides of the channel. We looked at, we sort of laughed a number of years ago about how, you know, agents wouldn't be selling this and, you know, MSPs wouldn't be selling this. And now we're finally sort of seeing this coming together of that. I don't think we're ever going to see it 100%, but we are seeing some more partnerships between these partner companies, which I think has been exciting to see, right? It's a key part of the evolution of technology, and I don't see that changing, because we're just seeing more technology that is requiring the expertise of different types of partners. And, you know, nobody anymore has the knowledge to go to market with 15 or 20 different things that all require different expertise. So those are probably from a partner standpoint, and what I've talked with partners about and seeing all this in 17 years, a lot has changed, but that's probably been the most exciting and the most interesting
Yeah.
for me as an outsider who, is kind of an industry observer.
You remember that first CP Expo that you went to? What? Tell me
First
what
one,
that was like.
smaller. That was the biggest thing. It's hard for me to. So I started with the company in 2008, and then it was 2012 before I actually first went to an event,
Mm-hmm.
and that just kind of shows how it was a smaller event back then. I want to say the first one I went to was maybe 2,500 people, and now they're around 8,000 or
Yeah.
close. So the amount of people who've gotten into this business is really interesting to me because, as I pointed out, I had no idea anything about the channel. And I'm like so many other people who have gotten into it, even if they're in sales or marketing or whatnot, that didn't know anything about the channel. And there are still people out there who are probably in the channel that don't really realize that they are. There's sort of this shadow channel that has been discussed of people who are selling to, dentists and all these verticals that don't even realize that they're part of something greater than they are. So yeah, so that's what I would say has been pretty interesting. The event itself, the only thing I can remember is that we were at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas in 2012, and a couple of years after that, I talked with our then event director, and it'd only been 2 years, and she couldn't even remember that it was at Caesar. She had blacked it out of her mind
Uh-huh.
because in her head it didn't go well. She was probably super critical, and whenever we put on these events, there are most things go really well, but then there are some things that don't, that the casual attendee would never see, and so we get critical uh, ourselves. But I just remember being smaller, and I had to read because this was sort of the introduction to me as the voice of the channel, or the
Yeah.
voice of telecom, as they used to call me. And I had to read some awards presentation, and I was asked to read like the entire 3 paragraphs that everybody had submitted, and we gave out like 50 awards, and I was literally in the back. I was doing the PA, and I was sweating, and I had a guy from the company come up and asked me if I was doing okay, because I just read off about 20,000 words and had literally no breath left or no water. So those are sort of my memories, but just I think that was probably Cloud was sort of just getting into the real purview of partners at that time, because it was a couple years later, that we hosted a Cloud, what do
Mm-hmm.
we call it, Cloud Partners show in the fall. And that was sort of as a reason, because it was really starting to get to that point.
So, your first show, roughly 2,500. Now we've got about 8,000 now. Who knows what it's going to look like this next
And it
year?
was all telco. Like, we didn't have any of the MSPs and VARs involved in that show at that
So
time.
many different people, types of business models in the pool, which I want to get into a little bit. But before I do, I want to know, like, that's a big chunk of your life, man. Big chunk of your life that's been dedicated to helping tell the stories from our community. And I'd love to know, like, what are you most proud of in terms of maybe accomplishments or something that you were involved in over that last 17 years?
Yeah. So no doubt my proudest accomplishment during that time is leading a successful team for Channel Futures. I mean, I had 2 guys who were with me, who I hired for 10 years. I mean, we talk about me being there 17. I was able to get 2 people and keep them with me for 2 years. And one of them, some of your audience certainly knows, is James Anderson, who
Yeah.
has stayed with the company to work for the new Channel Dive publication as one of their editors. But he was there, and I had another guy, Edward Gately, who has since retired, since he left the business at the same time I did. who started as a freelancer, and we kept him on for 10 years. So just knowing that I had the loyalty and the camaraderie among some of these guys to know that they'd stick around and work with me in what was really a niche market, and they certainly could have gone anywhere they wanted to. But that would be the biggest thing. I think one of the more interesting things is that we had that channel people on the move column, which I know you're familiar
Oh,
with.
yeah.
This is kind of the funny what I'm most proud of. I started doing that in about 2010 or 2011, and we would do, we'd have people doing in-depth stories, breaking news in the channel, and people would appreciate those things. But we'd put out that channel people on the move every month, and it'd get like 20 times the traffic of the stories we really
Yeah.
we were really proud of and worked hard on. And I always did that, and I always thought, this seems like kind of a little cheesy. I'm just pulling stuff from LinkedIn. We're getting information in from companies about new personnel. But when it came right down to it, people just loved it. They loved looking at their friends, and even sometimes the people they didn't like who were getting jobs, and so forth. So that was kind of fun. Other than that, it was the best times, and the things I'm most proud of also were probably the video work that we did with the company. As you pointed out, we did so many video interviews on the floor of the expo hall. We started this podcast that I mentioned Kevin and I did, and then James and I did for a number of years, and that sort of started as a lark. But that was the most fun that we had doing anything, because we just we had great guests who were in the channel, but then we had carte blanche to just kind of fool around on that podcast and do silly stuff too. So those were the things I was most proud of, and also the things I had the most fun with. So I guess they kind of go hand in hand.
Craig, when I hear the way that you talk about the people and talk about the impact, talk about your team, I know that it is more than just business. Just like, and I can connect and relate to that. And as someone that has dedicated a good chunk of their life and the largest chunk of their professional career to this industry, no doubt you feel a connection. You feel, dare I say, a bit of a responsibility. I know that I do, right? To carry on the work, to help to continue to advance the industry and make sure that it's in a better place and for those that come next, and continues to go in that trajectory. So now we're going to get into something that I don't know, might be a little bit challenging for you to say, as you've been on the side of telling so many great stories, positive things. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. People getting jobs. Everyone's got good things to say when they're talking to Craig. I'd love to know from your experience and just where you see the trajectory of our industry, what do you think some of the biggest challenges or threats are to our business moving forward here into 2026 and beyond?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. Anytime you've got an economic climate, of course, it's kind of the boring answer to start with, that is uncertain and continues to be uncertain. I think that any business is looking at that with a little bit of unsurety going into the new year. We seem to have been in that cycle now for a couple of years, aside from the stock market, which seems to continue to do pretty well. In terms of the things I thought about, gaps, challenges going forward, one thing I would say for the partner community, specifically the tech advisor communities, I'd like to see them be a little more open. We did some awards that we tried to develop over the last couple of years to mirror our MSP 501 awards when I was at Channel Futures. And we just struggled to get that off the ground because we couldn't get much information. There's still so much distrust, I think, in the community, despite how much we talk about everybody getting together and everything's kumbaya and everyone's so close knit. There's still a lot of distrust about releasing the numbers and showing just how successful or unsuccessful your business has been. And we ran into a struggle there, and we still gave out some of the awards, but it just didn't get in depth in terms of revenue success and all that our MSP 501 awards were. And part of that is because they'd been doing it for a number of years and it had been a little more trusting and so forth. And I think you see the same thing with the TSDs, right? They're very careful. They're very close to the vest about what they're trying to do, because they don't want anybody to use any of their insider information, for lack of a better term. I know that Canalys, which is another Informa owned research property, was trying to do a survey of TSDs, and if I recall, they were running into some challenges. They are getting all the information they wanted as well. Bottom line is, I think that we have to keep in mind that the industry does better when everyone is sharing information and best practices, right? I mean, this should be an obvious statement, but we continue to find that was an issue. And I think that extends a little bit in the relationship with vendors too. Maybe partners aren't as forthcoming as they should be with their sales pipelines. Now, vendors always, not many of them have great tools to work with in that regard too. So that's a challenge, and that's what I'm hearing out there. But those are kind of the things that I think of, particularly when it comes to the TA community. And again, I'm no sales expert here, Ronnell, but these are just some of the things I hear and observe.
Craig, you just said something that I've yet to hear anyone say out loud, especially in a public forum. And you just said something super polarizing, and you don't even think that it is because you don't know. I'm going to break it down for you right now. There is this perception, and I believe misconception, that this community is more than what it is. And I'm talking about the TA community. And what I mean by that is that I've heard so many people that have been in the business for a long time, leaders and suppliers, that talk about how close knit this community is, right? And every time I hear that, oftentimes I don't say anything, but in my head I'm thinking like, what community are you talking about? Here's what I mean by that. I've been in this business since 2001 when I sold my very first deal, started my first company in 2004. And what I found is that our community, for me, had not been very open. And what I mean by that is I'm talking about business best practices. I'm talking about sharing mentorship, coaching, all of those sorts of things. And so what I see is that people confuse the socialization as as the key to, or rather that is the example of how great our community is, because there's all this great socialization. And let me tell you, we can do that with the best of them. We go have drinks, go have steaks, whatever. I've seen people do a lot and do too much at times. But what I have not seen, now I will shout out Ashley Rowland, shout out to Ashley. I've seen what Ashley and Ryan have done with their group in trying to foster this sort of environment of collaboration. But our industry, from the standpoint of the TAs, for as long as I've been involved in this, has always been very secretive. What I'm doing, I can't share what I'm doing with you, and vice versa. And we can go have drinks and hang out, but at the same time, I've never really felt that strong community without that strong sense, I guess, of ownership of different things. Like, I can't share because I don't want you to do what I do, and those sorts of things. To me, that has been just a foundational to our industry since the get-go. And what I just heard you say is that your experience in terms of, trying to do what you guys do as journalists and broadcasters to get the information, kind of confirms what it is that I've been feeling and saying forever, that we are very secretive and hold on to our little pieces of the pie. Would you agree or disagree?
Well, yeah, and you're potentially missing out on opportunities, right? I was talking about partnering with other partners and so forth, whether it be someone who's, an MSP. We hear a lot about that when it comes to TAs, and okay, we need to get together with MSPs, but TAs and TAs can certainly work together. They have different expertise in these areas, and if they're not talking and collaborating, other than just knocking one back at the lobby bar,
Yes.
yeah, they're hurting themselves and the potential opportunities out there.
And who's doing that? I'm asking you guys as you're watching, are you doing that? Who's doing it? Like, again, you'll go on pinnacle trips and all those things and have a good time and have cocktails, but are you really collaborating? Are you sharing best practices? I believe, Craig, that there are a lot of outside threats to our industry. As great as things are right now, or have been, in terms of when you look at these top line numbers and everything, like you said, 8,000 people at the shows and everything, to me, that also presents threats. And I'd love to know your kind of thoughts on that in terms of like external threats or things that maybe people aren't thinking about, that maybe they could be something that is viewed positively, but could potentially be a negative or potentially be something that's a threat to business.
Well, I think it's just that, right? If you're not out there looking for new opportunities or looking to expand your business is just static, right? And we've had that so much. I go back to my cloud computing example. It seems like the channel is always just a little bit behind the technology and the direct sales when it comes to that, whether it came to AI. I could name a bunch of other examples. We see a lot of the things we reported on were, okay, this is happening, but why isn't the channel picking this up yet? Oh, well, the channel, we talked to somebody, well, it's going to be a couple more years with the channel. Well, why is that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of it is because, as you said, things can be perceived as pretty good regularly. I think there are a lot of channel partner business owners who are doing quite well. I mean, you can go back to slinging circuits, and people were making a good living doing that. It's complacency, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing pretty well, you can easily get complacent in what you're doing, and you're not growing your business nearly as quickly as you could be. And I think that comes back to the collaboration that we're talking about. If you're not jumping on the technology bandwagon right now, then maybe it's the opening yourself up to more collaboration that will help to expand your business. And if you do that, it'll probably bring the other as well.
Oh, great thoughts, man. I really appreciate that. So we've spoke a little bit about the TAs, a lot about the TAs. Let's talk about suppliers. You've seen, like right now, and you know this number better than I do, but I believe there's somewhere around 1,000 suppliers in the ecosystem. Each TSD has 4 or 5, the majors, 4 to 500 suppliers in their ecosystem. What we see, these folks come in and go out, come in and go out. What are they getting wrong, Craig? Tell me from your perspective. You see new suppliers in the space. What are they screwing up?
Oh, I think it's the communication that's probably the biggest problem from them. I think they just come in and think that things, if they just cookie cutter their channel program based on what they see online or what they've seen from other businesses, that it's going to work without as much work as needs to be put into it. And as you know, these programs need to be tailored to partners, right? Especially if the partner is focused on one particular part of the business or one technology, and maybe they haven't expanded to the point where they should have or they need to be. They need more communication from that vendor in terms of what that program looks like, and obviously the benefits that come with it as well. But again, that's probably the thing I've heard the most over the years, the complaints from both sides as well. We just don't, particularly from the partners, so we just don't have that communication from the vendors. And obviously the TSDs and distributors play an important role in that. But the ones who come in, like you're talking about, so often, I don't think they've done enough of their homework and maybe talked to as many partners as they should have before they really get involved in the channel. That would be my take.
Yeah. So, when you're seeing these, like if you were just from a communication standpoint, right? Because you're a broadcaster and journalist by trade. Like if you were able to give these folks getting into our industry, these new companies getting into our industry, one piece of advice that utilizing your expertise like what would it be?
Simple. Talk to partners. Talk to partners and find out which vendors have had the most successful channel programs in their eyes, not
Very
just
nice.
talking to the vendors, right? Because
Very nice.
I always laugh. It's that's the same press releases we'd get all the time when somebody'd start up a new channel program. It's like, I could write these things because I know it's going to be in it. It's going to be the best channel program of all time. And, we're going to work with partners and they're going to have the best communication and all this sort of stuff. And you just kind of roll your eyes a little bit because the proof's in the pudding, right? Because we've seen a lot of them, as you mentioned, come into the channel, stick around for a couple of years and then sort of duck out again because they didn't do it very well.
So getting tactical, like, so what would your recommendation be? Like, I've got a bunch of money, I'm about to enter the channel. So I hear you saying, go talk to TAs. What would that, if you're advising, you're consulting people on that, like, how would that look like? Are they doing, are they going to channel partners events? Are they sending out, what would your consultant hat now, like, what would you have them do?
Yeah, I think events. I mean, 100%. I think you got to meet people where they are in any business.
Yeah.
It's not just phone calls. I mean, I know that the most business I got done all year was by going to events, seeing people, making the contact, the face-to-face. You made the reference about people knowing me but not knowing me. It's the same in any type of business. Yeah, these vendors need to get in, go to the partner events just as a guest the first time around. We used to have people at the channel partners that come in and we'd have a tour for them. We'd have 8 or 10 vendors who came around on a tour to sort of learn what the event was all about. And they'd get a pass to do that and so forth. But that is where you want to do it. You got to meet face to face. I think the video thing has helped a great deal because now it's not just phone calls. It's helped a lot, but people still forget. If you, smile, do a handshake, exchange a business card. I don't know if anybody has business cards anymore, but everybody's got a badge or some sort of thing to scan. But that's the way to do it. You got to meet.
So do your due diligence, go out to events, go press the flesh. It's like politics. It's what it sounded like. Go meet the people where the people are at.
It is. And for some introverts like myself, there's something maybe people didn't know about me, but I enjoy getting out to the events and then getting back home and not seeing anybody for a week. But that was always the way to do it. I accepted that. And that was how I knew that I would improve my own, business where I was working, but also my own business as an individual, I guess, for lack of a better word.
What a great piece of advice and direction, whether you're starting a new channel or you're just, whatever it is that you're doing in business. A lot of times we get stuck in echo chambers, Craig. We're talking to people that are just saying back to us what we want to hear, and we're not hearing what we need to hear. So you got to go to the field, go to the people that go to where your customers are going to be, your prospects, put in that work. All right. So Craig, how many leaders have you interviewed in podcasts, just roughly podcasts, articles? How many people have you interviewed?
Oh my God. Even my whole career, or just talking about
in our industry
channel. I mean, I could put a number of thousands, right? I mean,
thousands.
I wouldn't be able to put a number on that.
And no one has interviewed.
The guys on my team have actually interviewed more because I was busy running the team a lot of the time.
Wow.
So, they're probably in the tens of thousands. We had guys who were writing 2 or 3 stories a day based on various interviews they did. But yeah, the numbers are crazy, but just me, myself, easily in the thousands. And over a whole career, I couldn't even tell you.
No one in our industry has spoken to more leaders or had oversight into these conversations with more leaders than you. No one. Okay. So, my question to you is, on this show, we've talked about some of the hot button topics and things that, from our perception or the perception of of the person that's the guest, right? Like, hey, what's that? That doesn't mean it's the biggest thing in the industry, but it's the biggest thing to them, right? And that's what
Yeah.
we've talked about. So, MDF has been something that's been a big hot topic button for a lot of folks, but I would like to know from your work in the last year or two, what are those, or you can give me one if you're comfortable with that. What is, or more, the show is yours. What's that hot button topic that everyone cares about? When I say everyone, we're talking about TSDs, suppliers, and TAs. Everybody cares about it. What are you hearing repeatedly over and over again?
Boy, a lot of things. I would say probably, and this was also reflected in what was most popular on our website, was the impact of M&A. I mean, mergers and acquisitions always a huge impact because one, always comes with layoffs. I mean, almost always, right?
Yeah.
Two, there's redundancies that come into play. The other, I think, is in relation to channel programs and the inconsistencies. Are people going to get paid? Is the channel program being wiped out entirely? The last 2 years, one that maybe didn't affect the TAs so much in your audience, but the whole VMware debacle after Broadcom bought them, that was like the most. Every time we did a story on that, it was the most popular story we had over the past 2 years. If you went and looked at the traffic on the website, probably 15 of the top 20 stories from the past 2 years were related to that, and other M&A activity as well, because that was always something that people wanted to know about, because it would impact them directly in most cases, whether it be through their employment, the employment of someone they know, or the impact on how they were going to go about doing business with that particular company.
So you've spent all of this time reporting on the news. Okay. You interview, people tell you their opinions, and you share those opinions with the world. I want your opinion now, and that may be uncomfortable, but I want your M&A. First thing you just mentioned. What's your opinion on the impact of that in our business, positive or negative? And what do you think the future looks like?
I think, I hate to just sort of ride the fence on this. I think it's both positive and negative. I think you're always going to hear the vendors say that it's positive, but in the end, M&A always, in fact, sometimes they come out and say that it like actually increases choice, but I don't think it ever does. We're seeing this whole hubbub out of the industry now. We're looking at Netflix and their acquisition of Warner Brothers. Well, why is everyone up in arms about that? Well, because they know it's going to reduce opportunity, reduce jobs, and probably raise prices on consumers. Well, it's not exactly the same, right, when it comes down to the channel, but you are going to have this impact almost every time from the choice aspect of who partners can work with. I mean, we're seeing that in the TSD space. I don't know that I've heard a lot of complaints about that, a little bit here and a little bit there. You've probably heard more about it than I have, but ultimately, I'm not sure that M&A is ever really as glowingly positive as it's usually painted out to be.
Yeah.
Some people are getting more rich, and, if you're a shareholder in these companies, it's usually a good thing. But, I'm a little on the fence, but I tend to think we get too crazy with all this M&A activity. It's not benefiting everyone, particularly the partner. In some cases, yes, but for the most part, especially some of these really large ones.
Yeah, I think the Netflix thing is very interesting, and I think it's kind of a sign of things to come. I think Netflix, people look at them as an entertainment company. They are an entertainment company, but they're a technology company at the end of the day. And their product is the entertainment, but their technology is what delivers that entertainment, right? It's not any different than a lot of the companies that are in our business. And I look at our business, we just talked about, 1,000 roughly, whatever that number is, companies in the ecosystem. And a lot of companies that thrived during the pandemic, right, did really well when people had to adopt these technologies.
100%.
And now not so well. A lot of companies that are sucking wind. And so I see this as kind of potentially the first big domino to fall. And usually, in business, that's what happens. You got one big domino, and now everyone else underneath says, okay, now we need to do this. Because I look at from a growth perspective, how are these guys going to grow? How are they? They had an event that is once in a lifetime event that had sales numbers go through the roof. So now you look at the only way you can really grow or add to that is through acquisition, in any way that's significant enough for investors to get excited. So I look at our industry, and to me, it feels like that is that sort of activity is going to increase in 2026. What are your thoughts on that? How does it feel to you? You've been talking to these guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not going to slow down, right? I don't see it slowing down. And I think that the other problem, just to add on to that, is the integration of these companies. The bigger they get, I mean, as Informa, when I was there, continued to grow and got bigger, the integrations took longer. It was much more challenging. And the channel isn't always going to be the first thing on their agenda. So that's another big issue when it comes to these companies that are just getting bigger and bigger, I think. And half the time, by the time they get things figured out after 2 or 3 years, then somebody comes in and wants to change the business model, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then who is hurt by that? It's people like the partners who are run through this cycle of change that happens regularly, and the employees as well, the employees of these businesses. And I've certainly seen that in my career.
Well, Craig, there's a lot of rumors are always constantly flying about mergers and acquisitions. But I think where, a lot of folks have been thinking a lot about, and I don't want to say they're concerned, maybe they're concerned, but thinking about the future of our business and thinking about the TSD model and thinking about the potential for more mergers and acquisitions there at the top. Like, what does your gut tell you? Do you think that there will probably be more potential merger or some acquisitions at the top of the space?
That's a good question. I'm not sure from the big three. I mean, it seems like they have some similarities, but the executives running those companies have so many differences. I mean, money always talks, right? But to me, it doesn't seem like any of those cultures are really good fits with one another. So, could happen tomorrow. Don't get me wrong. But I sort of feel that the big three will be where they are. Will you see more merging of some of the smaller players like we've seen over the past several years? I think no doubt. And will that sort of create a fourth challenger? I mean, we were talking about this in the wireless business a number of years ago before T-Mobile and Sprint came together, and now we've sort of got that big three, if you will. But in the channel, I don't know. I just don't see those big three merging based on a lot of their cultures and who are running those companies. But again, I could be wrong. I think we'll have some of the smaller guys continue to tie up and provide a challenger or continue to find their niche, just maybe in a little bigger way than they are right now.
Nice. So
what do you think? I'm turning it back on you, Ronnell. Come on now. I'm doing my job of asking the question.
I'm an investigative journalist. I think that anything is possible, and here is the big fly in the ointment, so to speak. You're absolutely correct in terms of the way that these TSDs being run differently, right? In terms of the cultures and things like that. But here's the fly in the ointment: the banks.
The money,
the banks,
and
it
depends on who owns them. Whether it's we've seen the ScanSource and buying Intelisys a number of years ago, and how that's how they run that business. And, we've heard promises that, we're going to accept this money, but we're not going to be acquired, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, money talks eventually. So you're right. Things
Ultimately,
can
there are
change.
guys and there are Wall Street guys right now that have put a lot of money into these companies, and that money buys them influence and direction,
It does.
especially if companies aren't hitting the targets that they projected. So I anything's possible. I mean, Netflix and Warner Brothers, did that make a lot of sense 10 years ago? Probably not. 5 years ago, maybe not. But in the current environment where Netflix is looking at acquiring libraries and how those
Yeah.
those digital assets have more, they have a lot of value, and how it's a lot less expensive than creating original content. Like, I mean, I don't profess to be as smart as the finance guys, but anything is possible. But I do feel strongly, Craig, that we are on the cusp of a lot of a pretty active M&A season for technology in general. Just as, again, companies look to find ways that they can increase revenue, and let's not forget this: the banks.
Yeah.
The banks
Well,
still
you
own a
talk
lot of
about the
these guys,
investment.
so they can pull the strings.
I could have answered that question earlier about some of the biggest, the biggest impact or the change I've seen in the channel. That's absolutely been it. I mean, it ties in with the M&A, right? But the investment is 100% just been crazy to watch, just in the last few years, and seeing the trust that these businesses have in the channel. And that's been, frankly, pretty exciting to know that the industry is on that trajectory, whether it ends up in the way that you're discussing or not.
What's the good part about it, and what's the bad part?
Well, I think the perception of the success of the channel and the potential for growth um, through that money is the good thing. The bad part, of course, is, are these companies losing their independence? Is there less choice? Um, are they being run by people who don't really know the channel? Those are
Yes.
the things. Yes is the answer. Yes.
Yes. The
Yes.
answer
Okay.
is yes. However, I'm not convinced that all that's bad, because the way uh, uh, that things have been run in some respects or weren't scalable, and not
Yeah.
mature enough for taking this industry to the next level, right? Like the days of and for better or worse, the days of the lifestyle partner, I think, are kind of numbered. For better or worse, it is what it is. I want to, as we get ready to wrap this thing up, I wanted to ask you a question specifically around the partners and TAs, because as we said earlier in this conversation, information does not come easy in this business, at that level. Regardless of what people say, I can just tell you what I've experienced in a lot of years, and again with the data that that you have kind of backs that up. A lot of growth, very high failure rate. And what I mean by that is people that are ultimately able to make a business out of this. And it's not just some side money that's coming in, but like TAs that are 100% in this business. That failure rate is pretty doggone high, folks. I would love to get a little bit of what you've seen in terms of best practices, some of the things that the better, more successful TAs have been doing. And I know you launched the TA 101 a couple of years ago. I know it's been a little bit of a challenge, like you had mentioned, in terms of getting data, but you still had access, and you guys have had access to some of the more successful TAs. So, I mean, I would just love if you could share a couple of best practices, and maybe some of the things that you're seeing that that you guys saw that the better TAs or more successful TAs were doing consistently.
Yeah. So I guess I just answer that overall with something I sort of said before, was this evolution of the business, right? I mean, you got to evolve your business, and those who are adapting new technologies or adopting new technologies in their business, those who were partnering with other TAs, those seem to be the ones that were really on the verge of making more possible within their business, not only with their own, but within the channel community as a whole. So those were the ones that seemed to be the most successful, especially those who'd been around for a long time, those who have been doing this a long time, but were willing to take that step, even if they were just, a few years from retirement, to work with other partners and learn to adopt this new technology, even if they didn't feel like they needed to for the general success of their business. Makes me think also of another thing I was thinking about before we started this conversation, was that one thing that I see also is that if some of these companies have more consistency within their staff, they also do well. We joked about the whole channel people on the move thing and how we'd see people. I'd be like, okay, this person was in this 5 months ago and now they're on to another job. Take this with a grain of salt, because as we discussed, for 30 years, I've been in 2 jobs primarily. But it seems to me, from a vendor standpoint of giving up on people too early, or from a partner standpoint of sort of just jumping ship, partner standpoint, or an employee at a vendor, sort of jumping ship before you've really gotten time to relate to that company. And I understand it. You go because there are, more money, maybe a more opportunity. But we see so much hopping around, I think, in the industry too. I believe the average channel chief is there 2 years. I think that was the number that Jay McBain always threw around. But if you're not there very long, it's hard to build consistency in these companies, whether it be a vendor or a partner business. So I'd like to see a little more of that. And we did find that if you had a little more consistent of a staff and some of those awards and those applications, some of those companies were doing a little better as well.
Craig, it is the wild, wild west right now. It's crazy. It's the amount of movement in our industry and the supplier level, right? Channel managers, marketing, channel chiefs, as you mentioned, 2 years was average. Maybe I've heard 18 months. So how do we fix that? Because that's a threat. If we can't have that consistency, right, to build strong business, in your opinion, what do we do? How do we fix that culture?
Are we out of time? Is that?
Oh no, because you gave me something. There you go. Are you going to plan? Now it's time to pitch your business. Transition to your which we will after this, because you said that. I'm like, I can't let Craig go without answering that.
That is so tough, Ronnell. I think it comes down to, particularly on the vendor side, of not losing patience just because, channel manager or channel leader hasn't hit this astronomical goal. I mean, I've seen that in my career at the businesses that I've been at. People who didn't hit some huge goal, and then all of a sudden they're not worth being there, but then they can just jump on board with another vendor doing the same job. So that is a difficult one from that standpoint, I guess, other than just telling vendors to be patient. And as far as, the channel manager role, or even the partner role, if they're on with one company and then just use it as a stepping stone to get to another, I would say you just kind of have to dig in and look at the consistency aspect that you're talking about, the overall impact of the industry. But that's kind of like telling somebody, you can make another 20 grand going here. So why wouldn't you do that? So the long answer to your question is, I don't really know. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. Well, we got to figure it out. We got to figure it out collectively, you all that are watching this, because it's a problem. It's a problem. And again, we're in a situation where you can't, I mean, you can't scale, you can't, you can't build relationships and loyalty with this next generation of TAs if you have that level of inconsistency. A lot of folks have been coasting off of those relationships they built, 10, 15 years ago. We got a whole lot of new entrants, and that ain't gonna work anymore. Craig, tell me what you're doing. Tell me where people can work with you, where they can tap into that brain of yours and all that great experience.
Yeah, I got to put some of that voice of the channel to work, right? So, first, thanks for the opportunity to talk about a lot of things on the podcast, Ronnell. I appreciate the invitation. As far as my new business is, I just started a new LLC. Basically, I wanted to put together all of the skills that I've accumulated over a 30-year career. Writing, editing, particularly the podcasting, the video hosting, using some of my skills from my television career that I've put to use at Informa for the last 17 years or close to that, and as well as on-stage presentation before as well, because I've done that for a number of years too, and the Channel Partners events and others as well. I kind of felt like in terms of forming a business, there were a lot of people who do some of these things, but not all of them.
Yeah.
A lot of marketing experts in particular who do this stuff, freelance writers who can help with writing articles about how great your channel programmer is or how your partner community is and that sort of thing. But I haven't really seen a lot of people out there who could sort of do those five things that I mentioned, sort of the 5-tool player, right, on the basketball court or baseball. I don't remember which is it.
Now it's positionless on basketball, so you got to do. Yeah, that's the future. Everything.
So there you go. So those things, what have I done so far? I edited a book for somebody in the industry, so I've done that. I've had a couple of consults on hosting some videos, helping somebody start with a podcast. So there's some consultation aspect going on with all of this. In addition, this isn't to say I'm not looking for full-time work too. This is sort of one of those things could blossom into something really big that could become a full-time career, or it'd be sort of a side business. But that's where I am.
What does a good client look like for you, Craig? Like someone's listening right now and they're a good fit for you. What is maybe their pain point, and what do they look like? Are they a supplier? Are they a TSD? What do they look like?
So I've had both. I've had both suppliers and partner businesses reach out. Just depends on how involved you are in some of these projects at this point. I mean, writing is pretty straightforward. The things I described.
Yeah.
An ideal client probably needs 2 or more of these things. I mean, if they want to have me come in and host a video, use my subject matter expertise, and what I've learned in the channel over a number of years, and simply my own personal brand. And people see me, I like to think they at least think I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. Might be able to promote their business in that way as well. Again, had somebody reach out, wanted information about getting a podcast going, so I can consult on that. Just all of these areas that I've developed over a long career as the voice of the channel. Somebody told me that I should put that on my LinkedIn as like my name and then dash voice of the channel, so when somebody does
it wasn't me, but I should have told you that. So I'm telling you that now too.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. But that sort of thing. There are a lot of things I think I can do to help businesses and use the skills I've developed and the expertise, not only from the channel, but in technology and other areas as well.
Okay, so Craig, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Someone wants to do business with you, they want to ask some questions. What's the best way?
Yeah, so thanks for that. They can hit me up on LinkedIn for one, but I also have email, Galbraith Multimedia @gmail.com. You're going to start seeing some of the, in fact, I've got one out there already, and maybe we'll have another one out by the time this podcast goes live. Some video tips I'm doing online on LinkedIn, just some real short tips, 90 seconds to 2 minutes. People can check them out, apply them to their own businesses. And then, of course, it's a vehicle to promote myself as well.
Awesome. Hey guys, make sure that you follow Craig if you haven't already. Again, links will always be in the show notes. And if you're someone that's curious and thinking, hey, you know what? My voice isn't big enough, or my brand needs some clarity. There's no one better to talk to than the voice of the channel. Not only is he checked into the needs of TAs and suppliers and TSDs, but you won't find anyone that's more respected. So Craig, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for your allowing me to make you uncomfortable with a little bit of, you're usually on the other side of this thing. So I appreciate that. Our audience appreciates that. And I can't thank you all for giving us your time more than, I mean, that means the world to me. So the fact that you guys would hang in here and listen to us chop it up for an hour and talk about business tells me that that we matter. And I like to think that the work that we're doing is well intended, and I'll again focus on with the growth mindset of helping us to all grow and be better. So if you found something helpful from this, please make sure and share it with your friends, like all that good stuff, comment, everything matters. This show was created to serve a very specific community. And if you're listening to this and you're at the end, you're part of that community, and we appreciate you. Thank you again for watching. Craig, thanks for hanging out with me. And until next time, guys, see ya. Thanks for tuning in to Shut the Hell Up and Sell Unfiltered. If you found today's conversation valuable, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review the show. For more resources, including gap assessments, custom sales consulting, or online courses designed to take your sales game to the next level, visit me at ronnellrichards.com or head over to sayless.academy. Until next time, remember, stop talking, start listening, and shut the hell up and sell.
Here to show up and show out. Here to show up and show out. Here to show up and show out. Yeah.